Saving Private Ryan was never meant to be thrilling. It was never meant to be an adventure. It was meant to be a recreation, a kind of a documentation of the closest I could get to the experiences of those who fought there on June 6th. So there was a lot of research that went into the recreation of that landing from the actual kids who landed. And Stephen Ambrose, had written a tremendous book about D-Day, another book about citizen soldiers, and he was, I think, the foremost. He was the first writer, the first biographer that really got into the DNA of a combat veteran, and really, to this day, is the father, I think, of all the combat veterans in America today. And I really felt that all the research that we did really brought that scene to life, because it was ugly, because it was honest, and it had to be ugly because that's the way it was. And I kept fearing that I was making it so ugly the film would never be able to get into a movie theater in America. It would be labeled NC-17 and nobody would ever see it. And I was hoping upon hope that the historic relevance of that landing on that day, which basically saved Western democracy, Western civilization, was saved that day by these kids that landed on June 6th. I was hoping that that would allow younger people to come to a movie that would certainly be rated R, but I think had more to it than just the exploitation of World War II. I think I was changed before I met Private Ryan, which allowed me to be able to make Private Ryan that way. I had been brought up by a father who fought in World War II in Burma, who had a lot of buddies who fought with him. Some didn't make it back. And I was brought up with the war. I mean, I was raised on the war. My favorite stories my father ever told me were war stories. And they weren't combat stories filled with action. They were stories about when the typhoon hit India and blew all the B-25s over, all the old Mitchells over. I mean, my dad didn't flew one or two combat missions, but he was mainly, in charge of all communication on the ground. And I love those stories because it brought me into the reality of it's not just the soldiers that fire the weapons that win the war. It's also the people that are in support of the soldiers on the front lines. So I have had an abiding respect for military people ever since I was a little boy. And it hasn't gone away. It allowed me to make Schindler's List, allowed me to make Private Ryan.